Is HGH a background worker or a superstar?
Well, if you have deficiency, it's a superstar. But if it's as a background worker, if you're suboptimal, then all of those, the interactions that, for example, for testosterone, one of the main things is the division or the direction of calories into developing muscle as opposed to fat. So there's less fat generation, but more muscle generation. Well, growth hormone subsidizes that by the fact that it enhances muscular growth also, and decreases, for example, your visceral fat and your gut fat. And so
HGH helps with that?
Correct.
Oh.
Correct. Welcome to Your Infinite Health. Are you getting older?
Are you feeling it?
How would you like to do that in reverse?
We're your host,
Dr. Tripp
and Lene.
We've run an integrative medicine practice for 13 years.
Together, we have 60 years of combined experience helping clients.
We've helped tens of thousands achieve success in health and live longer, happier lives.
In this show, we'll cover peer-reviewed and evidence-based integrative approaches to creating the health you've always wanted.
We also share professional experience we see in the field every day.
So if you're ready to feel, look, and live your best life, you're in the right place.
Welcome to Your Infinite Health podcast.
Tripp.
Lene.
Did I tell you the other day after I wrapped up my daily meditation, I went to go buy 12 bees. But the guy selling the bees, he gave me 13. And I said, "Hey, sir, you gave me extra. And he's like, "Yeah, that's a freebie."
Uh-huh.
My buddy Galen sent that to me. Thought it was funny.
That's good.
That's good. So you've been hanging out in the woodlands outside of Houston. I kind of hijacked the podcast and interviewed my buddy Dean for like a really long time.
Oh, great.
Normal than usual, but I hope everybody enjoyed it. So how was your event?
Oh, it was a great event. Always is. A bunch of doctors there and some paramedical personnel learning new stuff.
You're teaching them how to implement regenerative medicine into their own practices?
Yeah, the optimization, regenerative medicine.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
Cool. Well, recently we were a guest on, I think, Diane Gilman. I'm hoping I'm getting her last name right. Her podcast, and I don't think it's out yet. Listeners, when I get more information on that, I'll share it with you so that you can check it out, because I think it was a pretty good interview. She was known as the Gene Queen on the Home Shopping Network and is a breast cancer survivor.
Correct.
But she was talking about before going through her breast cancer, she was a huge proponent of HGH, human growth hormone.
Right. The experience with that.
Yeah. And she's really not the only one. And I know that we use it in our practice, but so I thought maybe you could talk about that, share with us what it is, why it is. I mean, we could start there. I don't want to overwhelm you with multiple questions in a row like I usually do.
Just give me one huge one.
What it is. What is HGH and why do people love it?
Well,
and why does the government hate it? Okay, but start with why people love it.
I don't think the government hates it.
Well, I don't know. I mean, for a while there, we couldn't get it. Overregulated, if you recall that.
FDA approved a synthetic peptide. So, I mean, it's always been available, but it's only been available for certain indications. And those indications were primarily related to basically the growth hormone deficit that would cause dwarf and those types of things. So it wasn't, I mean, the thing that people are looking more at now and where it's become a huge fad has been, and reasonably so, is in adult growth hormone deficiency. So that's the real area of interest for growth hormone at this juncture.
So what is it? it's something that we have naturally and then it declines as we age, like every other hormone?
It's the cause of our growth spurt in adolescence. And after that growth spurt, it's still present, but the roles become much different, so to speak. They're always there. They're always activities of that hormone and its major counterpart, which is created by its secretion, which is IGF-1. But those two peptides are really, really important. And if we don't have them when we're older, what happens is that we lose energy. When we have suboptimal levels, a number of their functions kind of disappear and result in a clinical syndrome that not many recognize.
Okay.
So do you have a question?
I do. So, I mean, I know that lady, she believed it was the fountain of youth. So people are receiving it not for that initial diagnosis, but to live longer.
So as we age, and I've talked about this before, I think about the age of 25, the signaling and the function of the diverse organs in our bodies deteriorate very slowly and subtly, cause a toxic environment for the cells, so that they're really not functioning as well as they used to. They make more errors. There's more risk for the byproducts of the toxicity and mutations and inflammation and those things. So as we do at Infinite Health, what we do is we assess all of these levels and the performance of the patients, and then try to re-optimize them to get them back to that 25-year-old age level. And in that includes, one of the primary things is IGF-1. We measure IGF-1.
Is that IGF-1 what they measure to see if a woman's pregnant? I think I'm not confused with something else.
Yes.
Oh. Never mind. What am I getting it confused with?
Probably HCG is what you're...
Oh.
They're thinking HGH and HCG.
Oh, I always get those confused.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was interesting because I had a guy from social media reach out to me because he has been getting testosterone. I think he's only been getting testosterone and he hasn't been getting it properly.
It's just a guy who's getting it every 3 weeks.
Yeah. His doctor is like dangerous. But I was like, it's not just your testosterone. Like, because generally dudes that come to us, it's not just testosterone. Depending on what they need, they're like, that shot is loaded with HCG.
Right. We put HCG in it, testosterone, a number of other things, depending on what the patient wants to opt in for.
Yeah. So I feel like, and I think this is like the trend now where these little pop-up faux medical shops are popping up, dosing people with testosterone without really knowing what they're doing and not really taking into a consideration of all these other aspects, like the human growth hormone.
Really the physiology of testosterone, quite frankly. And that's the case of that poor fellow, is he's been getting testosterone, and after about 10 days, it's virtually gone. And
yeah, but I guess my point was, he was like not being given proper dosing or personalized medicine. But like, even for the lady that was getting HGH, like, she didn't talk about anything else. You don't know if she was on any other hormone or doing any other thing. It was, so this idea that a singular supplement is going to be your saving grace, I think, is a flawed idea.
Right. But unfortunately, that's what happens when something becomes popular. Everybody thinks, and testosterone, estradiol, progesterone are all those star players. They're the superstar out there. But the superstars always have to have the cheerleaders that are subsidizing the effort and working the back scenes to make sure that the superstar has the best performance possible. Is
HGH a background worker or a superstar?
So, well, if you have deficiency, it's a superstar. But if it's a background worker, if you're suboptimal, then all of the interactions that, for example, for testosterone, one of the main things is the division or the direction of calories into developing muscle as opposed to fat. So there's less fat generation, but more muscle generation. Well, growth hormone subsidizes that. by the fact that it enhances muscular growth also, and decreases, for example, your visceral fat and your mid-level gut fat. And so
HGH helps with that?
Correct.
Oh.
Correct. So anything that produces that increase in IGF-1 actually subsidizes that effort and combines with the testosterone to get a better outcome. And it's cardioprotective and a number of other things. So they're working together to create better cardiovascular health, for example, and the ability to use that cardiovascular health.
Okay. So what are their risks?
Well,
can you overdose on HGH?
Well, it depends on how you're getting your HGH. Yes, there are potential risks with overdosing, and the potential risk with HGH is that when you receive it, depending on the dosing, you can overdose on it and bypass the feedback loop, so to speak, so that you can get the effects of acromegaly and overdose of growth hormone. Whereas, for example, if you're using a peptide that stimulates the growth hormone receptor to make the pituitary gland produce, then those peptides that do that,
such as CJC,
ibermorelin, a number of there are about a dozen of them. But at the same time, those, by using a peptide, it's a healthier way to approach it because you don't bypass the feedback loop, so to speak, and the production of other members of the IGF, insulin-like growth factor family, combine to counteract the excess, so to speak, if you get into those areas.
So because you can get it in a peptide form, do you find that people are like just buying it and not knowing how to dose themselves?
Yeah, that's occurring all the time.
Is that generally like weightlifters?
Well, bodybuilders are certainly among the first that use these things clinically, so to speak, and to enhance the outcomes of their exercise. So, yeah, I mean, the real challenge there is that it may have been supervised when they initially started using it, but at the end of the day, then it became so popular because people were winning prizes and whatever competitions with it. Then ultimately, these things tend to get popular and go to the black market and get out of hand. And people then have the byproducts of overdosing.
Well, not only that, but you don't even know if what you're getting is what you were told you're getting. Like there's no...
It's true too.
So very interesting. So you have men and women on this peptide. Do you have like a star case study you could talk about?
What?
With somebody that's on or been doing HGH?
Well, I think if you talk about Diane, I mean, and I think I mentioned this to her when we were talking, I think she may have been getting the benefits also of estradiol, or I don't think she was I think she was on a synthetic estrogen derivative. And that was one of the reasons her physician in New York told her that she had maybe overstimulated her breast gland cells and caused breast cancer. Although I think the true outcome there is that she was having a great sense of well-being. Her energy had come back. She was going and blowing. And I think she attributed that to the growth hormone more than she did the female hormone replacement therapy. And I think it was a combination of all those things really that made her feel so good and so rejuvenated. And I think, she had a great response to it. And a lot of people, especially those individuals, those male and female individuals that end up with adult growth hormone deficiency, actually, they present very much the same way as someone with estradiol or testosterone deficiency would, with the kind of the lack of energy, easy fatigue, their muscle strength fades, they can't do their workouts anymore, and that type of thing. And then biologically, the byproduct of all that is that you look at their cholesterol levels and their bad cholesterol levels and their kind of the profile of cardiovascular risk, it becomes much more prominent in those people. So the bad cholesterol goes up and their cardiovascular risk is significantly increased by that profile because their cholesterol has been enhanced by the absence of the growth hormone, which is a metabolic balancer, so to speak. And continues to, actually, it's a kind of a repair hormone after our growth spurt. It helps our cells that may create an error and maybe delving towards the welfare cell or zombie cell kind of population.
You love talking about those
Yeah.
zombie cell.
Yeah. So, but as that happens, the toxicity of the environment would include that the change in the metabolism and the absence of the repair because of the low growth hormone level and subsequently low IGF-1. I mean, physiologically, growth hormone has a very, very short half-life, and actually it effectuates the end effects of growth hormone are really mediated by the IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor 1 out of that family. So really interesting feedback loop there.
It is interesting. So what do you think would be one thing everybody should know about it if they're going to a doctor to get it? Like, what's one thing somebody should ask?
Well, it should be asked probably in the context of their symptomatology. They're coming in with a symptom profile that is developed over probably months and is causing deterioration in the environment in their body. And if it's just the growth hormone, which is it would be highly unlikely it's just the growth hormone by itself. The suboptimal levels of all these over the last 15 years, as I've been following different people's profiles, I mean, I would say probably anywhere from 70 to 85% of our patients probably have suboptimal levels if they're 35, 40 years old or older.
You mean of people who come to see you, but not your patients, because you have optimized your patients.
Oh, excuse me. Yes, of course.
Just an important detail there. Anybody who's not your patient probably has suboptimal levels. So he won't say it, but I will. Fascinating.
Fascinating. So that being said, if the symptoms of that fatigue, easy fatigability, and that's out there everywhere. I don't know a patient that comes in new to us that doesn't complain about fatigue and easy fatigability. I don't believe anyone, rarely, unless they're already optimized, comes in and says, "Oh, my energy is bristling like I was when I was 20 years old."
I have to say, I think since COVID, like life just seems more stressful emotionally. And I think that creates a lot of fatigue, just the mental and emotional stress that a person goes through on a day-to-day basis. I mean, I know for me, I start out stressful because I have to get the kids up, get in the car by a certain time, get through 30 to 40 minutes worth of idiot drivers on I-10 to get the child to school. I'm just saying, I'm not the only one that is like hitting the clock and going from first thing in the morning. And then depending on what's going on in your day, it's very rarely, I think, that you just, that you have a unicorn, butterfly, chocolate chip, wonderful day, so it makes sense. Well, I guess
think about that scenario though, because what you're describing also, and this is in our world that we live in, this kind of fast-paced world that we live in, we're going. And some of us, besides that stress, that external stress that we're actually formulating for ourselves, depending on how we interpret the information that we receive, if that is ongoing all the time, plus let's say you have a little infection here or there, a little virus or a little something or other, or any other kind of physical stress, then that stress consumes DHEA, that consumes cortisol, that consumes
that's what I'm saying. I think that's why everybody
insulin, that consumes.
That's why everybody is so freaking tired.
That consumption, if it's not being thought about, then you end up with what they call adrenal fatigue, also, which can be really. The two things I always focus on in somebody that comes in that's complaining about fatigue, the first two things, if they don't work, nothing works, then is cortisol and thyroid. So adrenal function, adrenal cortisol and corticosteroid function, and then thyroid. And virtually all of the patients that, I say 70 to 80% of patients who come in have some deteriorated suboptimal function, those two organs. And by getting the replacement, by getting those replacements that have to be supervised. Obviously, you don't want to overdose on this stuff because overdosing on like DHEA can interfere with your other steroid hormones like testosterone, estradiol, progesterone, all of those things. But that and thyroid, and then add to that your growth hormone. And you might be more predisposed if you got involved in sports, you had head trauma, mild concussions, or things like that, because the pituitary may not be communicating as well as it should be with the hypothalamus, and that's kind of the control loop with growth hormone that needs to be. So first thing I'll think about if I see a low or a suboptimal growth hormone level would be, wow, I'll ask during the initial interview or the second interview if they've had head trauma or, I don't know, a motor vehicle accident or any of these common occurrences nowadays that could potentially impair the communication between the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland.
So it all works together.
Yeah, it's all
interconnected and integrated.
Right.
Ergo, our integrative approach to medicine. Well, awesome. Is there anything else I forgot to ask you about or anything else you wanted to add?
Well, I think a couple little notes on replacement with either peptides or HGH. Maintaining good levels and that with the IGF-1 is going to be important. And then,
sorry guys, we're at home. Dogs are barking. It's life. So go ahead.
Subsequently, I think stay on top of those levels are really important because you can't just presume that things are in a good range, because your body's consumption of these things changes from minute to minute, from stressor to stressor, from activity to activity, and the need for a good balance and staying on top of those things is really, really important. And a lot of people take that for granted and start taking the same dose over and over and over again, and either get too much or too little, or for the environment. So for example, I try and get my patients to learn how to monitor certain parameters so that they can actually say, oh, this might be off, that might be off. I might need a little bit more of this, a little bit more of that. And then they're instructed to contact us just in case if they think things are off a little bit, so they can get information to make adjustments if necessary.
So very important to not just get stuck on a dose, but
right.
to adjust according to what's going on in your life and your activity level and things like that.
And I think the last thing to think about is mood deterioration and cognitive deterioration and all of these things. Testosterone, growth hormone, thyroid, and cortisol. All of those can manifest, DHEA can manifest by cognitive difficulties. Am I manifesting that right now? No.
Do you feel like you're manifesting a cognitive difficulty?
Let me think about that.
No.
But yeah, so all of those things, if they're suboptimal, if they're just a little suboptimal, or they're frankly deficient, will manifest by mood disorders and depression, anxiety, all of those things. So
then you get into misdiagnoses.
How many times have we seen patients come in that have been put on antidepressants and all of these things, and some antipsychotics even I've had come in, that actually their hormones were so poorly balanced and they were so suboptimal in all of these different areas that after their correction, there was, well, aside from the effect of the medication and the need to taper them slowly because they have side effects with withdrawal, they never needed those drugs in the first place. And so that is one of the things that I kind of rage about, is that we have people going in so quickly giving these.
Are we still on the topic of HGH?
SSRIs, yeah, because it's not HGH we're talking about, it's IGF-1 and the ability to increase the effects of growth hormone. But at the same time, we have the ability to maybe be a little bit more discerning about what's going on with the patient, instead of just giving them I'm sorry, I'm on my soapbox.
You are.
Just give them
so easy.
My antidepressant here and have a half.
People make it so easy to get on that soapbox. So listener, I apologize. We're going to get off that soapbox because we're running out of time. I just want to make sure that you've made all the points you want to make.
Yeah, I think we've covered it.
Okay. All right, listener, I hope you find that informational and helpful. And if you have any questions about HGH, feel free to reach out. You can go to our website, yourinfinitehealth.com. Obviously, we're not going to provide medical advice over the website, but
don't we have a blog out on this now too?
There may also be a blog. Also, if you have any suggestions for something that you would like for us to cover, please also reach out as well. Love to get your feedback, your positive, constructive feedback. And until next time.
Thanks for subscribing to Your Infinite Health. I'm Dr. Tripp.
And I'm Lene. Until next time, feel it, look it, and live it.